Ooh, you just walked into a fabulous episode of Did She Really Say That? And the answer is, of course, yes, she did. Because we're going to be asking Miriam some tough questions here about what it means to be a female entrepreneur. But first off, we're going to talk about something around community and relationships. And the reason I invited Miriam to be part of Did She Really Say That and be here with us on this episode is because I love her energy. I love where she's coming from in terms of building relationships. And done two extraordinary things. First off, she co founded the Open Circle, which is where the work is all about restoring, connecting, belonging, resilience, and working with people who are just struggling to find their footing in the world. How many of you know of someone or even know yourself? You can silently raise your hands because you guys can't see me raising my hand over here. I do apologize, but I'm asking you to say, hey, this could be me, that have struggled to find your footing, whether it's in business, it's in the corporate world. Heck, it could be just motherhood in general or friendships. If you've been struggling, this is where Miriam has really kind of stepped in and said, there's a space for this and I can hold it for you. What's been really interesting is that throughout this year, she's really been transforming herself, both spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, really focusing on what's going to make the biggest change in the world. And she's launching a program called, or an initiative called the Wayfinders, which we're going to be talking a little bit more about also. And because I think this is one of those areas where, we do have a younger generation that is looking for mentors, that is looking for stewards of the land, that are looking for people to follow. They want more purpose driven. And we're looking for that community, those elders that can bring this information together, and the Wayfinders is a way for Miriam to connect us together. And I think this is such a beautiful place for us to be because it's transcending the globe, it's transcending generations, it's transcending cultures, and it's really about bringing us together, turning us around to really rediscover our purpose and bring community back into our lives. We are not separate entities sat on this earth to be all alone and miserable. We are here to be coming together, having fun, united, and sharing wisdom across the board. So I'm super excited that Miriam is here. Thank you so much for being here on the show with us.
Great introduction. Yes, and it is true. We are interdependent.
What? When did that
I
happen?
know. I mean, a lot of theologians of the world would say we're not, but yes, if anyone, when you step out into nature, you can really see the truth of that. Yep, we're in an interdependent ecosystem, and
So let's talk a little bit about that because I think people think interdependent, and especially with women, we don't want to be dependent on people, but there is the sense that we're super connected, not only to each other. Like we are literally, Miriam, you and I, we may be distanced by a state, we may be distanced by, you know, a computer, but we are so connected. And we relate to each other, we're connected, and I love the work you're doing around working with the land. Let's talk this. Let's really break this down.
dive in. Well, the journey started after years of working in the corporate world. I was focused on change, and I kind of just, I was like, when I was younger, I was like, oh, corporations, evil, you know, like,
Terrible places to
resentment,
be.
like a
Yeah.
rebel, like anything alternative. And then, I started working with corporations. So like, well, maybe they're not evil. Actually, that person's pretty good, and that person over there. But what I saw a lot of is blinkers.
Yes.
And so it was kind of like this thing that I can't see my hands, but it was like it went from being open to who we are in the bigger context and the impact that we have to kind of blinkering in to kind of not seeing. And it
Well,
led
it'll all
to
be
stupid decisions, like really stupid decisions. And I was like, I don't know that I want to, there must be something different. And that led me into kind of this feeling that where the world was going, and this was around to the 2000s after September the 11th, um, it really led me into kind of seeing that where we were going, the problems that we were coming up against, and because we were becoming so globally interconnected, like it was not the hero model was not going to cut it. There was not going to be
no.
one person who could kind of lead us to triumph, that it was going to be reliant on a collective wisdom, on us all changing the way that we hold our reality. And at the root of collective wisdom, like any wisdom tradition, has a knowledge root. And the
Yes.
knowledge root is interdependence. That's not codependence, everyone.
So
Codependence is something different.
interdependence, good. Codependence, not always so good.
Yeah,
Yes.
trust, not always. And this is I'm a codependent recovery person, so I'm speaking from experience. I spent years in my marriage trying to fix my husband. Don't you worry. That's typical kind of outcome of codependence.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll be all right as long as I can fix you.
Yes. If once you're fixed, then what?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, that's right. But yeah, interdependence, and really so much of what you mentioned, connection to the land, so much of the last 10 years of my life have been reconnecting with the wilderness, with nature in a different way to really like let it teach me. And I
Mm.
have just learned so, so much. Like
Yep.
it's obvious, but somehow as I've spent a lifetime of working, you know, 16 hours a day, any working mother knows you're working 16 to 18 hours a day
At least.
at least,
At least.
and like not being kind of getting caught up in the illusion of
Hmm.
like this brick and mortar and this house and this TV and this computer, these are the reality. And it's actually, when you go out into nature, it's so evident. Oh, to be healthy, we need diversity. Any healthy ecosystem, it needs diversity.
Yeah.
Oh, everything is dependent on the other. It's like this complex web. Oh, we work in cycles. The sun rises, the sun sets. And I'm kind of, I have a slight, tilt to my voice because I'm talking to myself because it's like, oh, this is
Reminder.
obvious, simple stuff. But the
Uh-huh.
unlayering I had to do to get there, like, oh, all the beliefs and assumptions I kind of like placed on top of myself.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's the root of of the interdependence, not codependence.
Well, and I think that's what we tend to forget. I mean, we're so focused on, and we have been, like you talk about the blinders, like the look at, we got so focused on profitability over people. We put that as like the cornerstone, even, in business, in life, in school. It was all about the bottom line. It was all about money and less about people. And when you start putting money over people, you lose everything. You lose a sense of reality. You lose the sense of what and who actually got you to those levels. And I think that's the piece.
Yeah, I mean, I think even in that, the way that I kind of would work with that is even in that statement, there's a tendency to go again, um, money first, now bad, people first, good, tick, or now we actually need to swing the other way. And that's what I
Yep.
saw in corporate life. Oh, no, we got to put profit first. Oh, no, we got to put people first. And
It's a
that's
constant.
actually like there's a competition between the two, and that you could define that as the opposite of interdependence.
I agree.
Actually, our systems depend on, yes, money, which is in and of itself neutral but represents the exchange of goods and services, which is healthy. And of course, that's, we need that. And yes, people, yes, our connection to each other is really important, our well-being. So it's not either or, it's actually being able to kind of see how those two things
Mm,
are interconnected. And I
agree.
think, that's kind of part of the problem. For example, in the corporate world, it would go in these cycles of like, that's good, that's bad, that's good, no, that's bad. No, it was like,
Yeah, there's this constant juggling as if one's supreme over the other, but they're both and equally important. Like there's not even an and, it's just equally. Like you need one and the other.
it's like saying the moon's bad and the sun's good. It's like, well,
Yeah.
they're all part of the
They're
system.
all part of the system. Like without the moon, we wouldn't have tides. We don't have like they all echo interdependently work together.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So, and I love that. I love how you bring people back to nature. So talk to me a little bit for the audience and listeners. So when you had the open circle, talk to me about like what that was. Cause I know I thought it was fascinating because I did introduce you to another guest that'll be on our podcast also. But you guys
Yeah.
like talk about corporations and bringing them back into Mother Nature. I thought this was a fascinating
Yeah, so
journey.
yeah, I've always, my parents were pioneers. I've always liked to push the edges. So when I started my first company, it was like, I'm bringing theater and film into corporate change. And I was like, hired a lot of actors and writers and like, had great success. And it was fun. And we were able to reflect back the stories of what was going on in organizations. With Open Circle, the edges I have, so at the end of that journey, I think in a lot of my work we were looking at behavioral change, but I started to see, oh God, we are going to have to do so many systems change because technology was coming in thick and fast and systems just
So
had to
fast.
change. And yeah, and we had all these industrial style models of management, which is so out of date. It's like, why are we thinking about our businesses as industrial? Like we're living in this moving, breathing ecosystem. Oh, we're in an ecosystem. Where could I learn about the ecosystem? Why don't I go and have a look at it? So that's, I mean, again, I'm, speaking to myself, but that was basically the progression. So it was less, I think the hardest thing is people would be going like, oh, you do team building. But no, actually, what we were fundamentally looking at is a paradigm shift.
Mm,
See the way that you built your organization as an ecosystem, and also a shift, and that shifts what we are as leaders and as managers. So it means that we're, instead of using this kind of industrial model of like, oh, I need to motivate people, I need to influence them, oh, we're going to have this hierarchical model of performance review. As the complexity of the global systems, as customers started knowing things before people internally in
yes.
the company started knowing them,
God.
that started to mess up even more. It
Yep.
was really evident that as leaders, we needed to become facilitators. We
Hmm.
needed to, instead of listening for how to kind of like keep things in boxes, we needed to actually listen and look for the movement. Where are things moving? Okay, how do we move with that? And so that's really what our organizational work was. It was to assist people with a actual paradigm shift of how do we move with the movement, and still working in that now. And yes, a lot of the work we did actually was online at first because we were
Yep.
in COVID, but it's still the easiest place to get back in touch with that because it involves, I would say, largely because of our schooling system, and it involves an unlearning, a kind of like stripping back of what we've kind of attached to leadership and to organizations. And the best place to do that is actually in nature because it's so evident there. So you can observe, you can spend time listening and looking at how the bird interacts with the tree and the sun rises and sets, as I said, and really get a sense of like, oh, okay, so what if I saw my organization life cycle like the cycle of a day? Oh, okay, so we're in the birth phase. Oh, actually, in the birth phase, alignment means it's time to dream. Oh,
Mm,
we're in the kid phase. Oh, now it's time to play. Oh, we're kind of like an adolescent now in this project. Oh, now we're like looking at identity. Okay, now we have to let go of all of that playing and identity and really like we get into the service part of it. So it's kind of continuing to look at that, the cycles of change and the bigger story of how we are in organizations and how to align our response to it.
I love that. So for our audience that's listening, what's an action that they can take that you can gift them with that they can start kind of working on building these relationships, learning about these ecosystems for themselves? Like what would be an activity or something they can start implementing today?
Oh, I think are really cool. So we were early days, we were working with Canva,
Mm,
and it was cool. And they were based, for anyone who doesn't know, they grew out of Sydney. And I was
yep.
back visiting Sydney. I was living in the States, and so they invited us in, and we worked with the team. We did something really simple, and you can do this even if you're at home or if you're in an office block. But we said, just do this experiment. Walk through the office like without, or through the room that you work in, without a purpose. So, like normally when we're traveling, we're saying, "Oh, I've got to go to the bathroom and then come back to my computer."
Mm-hmm.
Let's do what we call a wander. So a wander,
Mm-hmm.
WONTDER, WANDER. So a wander, and just observe how and where things are moving. Like if you're on your own, I'm in my home office. Where is my computer placed in relationship to the window? How do I move? What are my general patterns? If you're in an office, like what do you observe about people's general patterns? And so this is starting a loosening of the hold, and how this, the hold of, I think what's we've got a hold on, if you're anything
Mm.
like me, is here's my list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm very organized. So as long as I get through my list, and if I do my list, that means I meet, this is not saying goals aren't important, they are important, but it's linear. Okay, in order for my business to grow, I've got to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then that's going to get me to here, and then that's going to get me to there. I'm not saying goals are not important, but we need to balance them out with letting our sharp focus, going back to the blinkers, widen out and take note of our environment, listen
Yeah.
to our environment beyond the blinkers of our goals. And in that, you might notice, like in the context of an organization, take time out, notice what's going on in your internal environment. That's an example. Wandering through simple exercise, going in and see what's the mood. What do you notice about the mood of the
Mm.
organization? What do you notice about the energy levels? Oh, people seem really tired and disengaged. Then start to observe the outside world. Don't shut it out. What's going on outside in the market? How is it moving? And
Mm.
what all of this is about is alignment. So instead of kind of having your blinkers on, the fundamental principle of this is opening up your listening in an ecosystem. And it's exactly what you need to do in the wilderness. You need to have 360-degree
Yeah.
awareness, because you need to know what's going on. If a weather front comes in, you need to move to shelter.
Yep.
That's the same thing in our organizations. Um, I want to give one more really
Yes.
thing. This was a turning point for me. I don't know, maybe it is for other women too. So I've never really liked conflict or when things are tense. I normally will honestly dissociate.
Yep.
I'm like a freezer. So like if someone insults me, I'll usually apologize to them. That's how bad
Mm.
I am. I'm like, they'll go, "Oh, obviously like a terrible person to me.
Right.
I'll
And you're
go,
like, oh, my
"Oh, I'm
bad.
so sorry. Let me just get out of your way." So that's my conflict style. Other people have different conflict styles. But one of the revelations in doing this work is the revelation of, actually it's the tension.
Mm.
I'm going to call it tension rather than conflict. It's the tension that are the doorways to the next step in the transformation of your organization. So it's the tension when you're noticing tension in an environment, or it's like a tension before the storm and then the storm comes. When you're noticing tension, one of the biggest skills I have learnt as someone who leads in this style is to take note of your nervous system. Or if it's with your team, notice where the nervous system of your team is at. Do what you need to de escalate, or
Mm-hmm.
to make sure people aren't kind of frozen like I would be. And then really like stay with the tension. So instead of sidelining it, stay with it as a creative generative force. It's in that tension that often lies the genius of the paradigm shift that is needing to happen. So those kind of two things, opening up your listening, and then that's, awareness of like working with your own and others' nervous systems, and staying with the tension in a situation so it can evolve, are two
Yeah.
of the key, really simple things that people can work with.
Yeah, there was a conversation I was having recently around this tension that you're talking about. And I think it's beautiful because one of the things she brought it to, I love string instruments, right? So when you have a string instrument like a violin or something like that, the tension of the string depends the sound. If it's too loose, it doesn't make a sound. If it's too tight, it screeches. if it's tuned just right and there's enough tension on it and you harmonize that tension with the other strings, so like that's what you're kind of looking at overall is like you want to play in that tension because that's where the music play, that's where you start to dance with each other. But you have to understand that that tension isn't a bad thing. It is a space of curiosity, and it is the ability to find out, are you too tight or are you too loose, and do how do we work together as a team to create that equal tension that each of us play beautifully at.
Yeah, yeah, and I think there's a discernment in it because I'm not suggesting that sometimes things don't need fixing. Um,
Mm.
so, it's like what I hear you talking about there is attunement. So
Okay.
attunement and alignment.
Okay.
And so being able to get the attunement of in your environment really aligned so that it can be um, you know cohesive, and aligned to where you want to go.
Right.
And I think the thing with the sort of tension I'm talking about, let's call it conflict for the
Okay.
sake of it, um, inner outer conflict, is that sometimes that conflict arises because there is something technically that needs fixing.
Okay.
So a technical problem might be that a system isn't working and
Mm.
there's sort of tension around that because the system's not working and actually it just needs a tweak,
Got it.
fix, technical. But the discernment is often sometimes the conflict, let's just call it conflict in this case, is not coming from something that's technical. It's coming from something that needs to, at its root, change in your system. So it's like, I would
Mm.
equate it to like a changing of direction.
Okay.
And often, what I would say is it's basically something at the foundations. It's that kind of cliched statement of, you can't create a new thing when you're thinking about, you can't create a new thing when you're thinking about it in the same way. So it's
Correct.
that type of conflict tension that actually is the energy, two things sparking, just like sex creating a baby, or electricity. It's two things sparking off at each other to create something new.
Okay.
A new, in this case, a new way of seeing things. And this kind of leads us into, again, why would we take people into the wilderness for this kind of work? More often than not, it's also a really good place to play with what it is for you to step into the unknown,
Mm.
into unknown territory. And in any, in this time in the world, there is enormous societal and cultural change happening, as well as systems change. Systems
Yes.
change from technology, societal and cultural change also intermeshed in that. And so there's this constant thing that we're dealing with, going back to talking about nervous systems, is that we are kind of uh, we need to become more practiced of what it is to step into the unknown alone and together, and what happens to us when we do that. And what we're seeing instead of that is kind of like a fight of like,
Okay.
we're seeing a fight over territory, basically, whether it be,
Yep.
ideological territory or actual territory, but seeing a fight or a resistance to actually standing together in the unknown and letting that kind of transcend into sort of a new way. But it's a process and it happens over a long period of time.
It does. I would agree. So that gets me as you're talking with your audience. So this is a pretty bold statement. It says, when did she really say that is this podcast? So has there ever been something you have found yourself saying to a client or maybe saying to a group of people that had them all stop and look at you and go, did she just really say that? Like, is there anything around that?
Wow, did she really say that? A funny story comes up. This is more of a joke. So I was one of my first clients when I was younger. I used to work with big multinationals. So I was working with Coca-Cola, big job. I'm in my early 30s. It's about 20 years ago. And I designed this big leadership program with lots of actors, and it was like playing stuff out so people could practice stuff. And part of it was a mock trial. And we have all the top leaders at Coca-Cola. I'm youngest by about 10 years. I'm facilitating it, totally out of my depth, but hey, brave woman in there. And we get up to it, but also I'm like very conscious, mostly men, of being very proper. And so I'm trying to be very proper, and I'm also playing the judge. And there's this break in the argument, and they, say, what do you think about that, judge? And then I'm, have to kind of like pass it on to the mock defense attorney. So there's this pause, and in the middle of this pause I let out this ripper fart. Oh my God, everyone was quiet, and it was like this moment of this fart coming out, and everyone kind of just looked at each other, and they were so embarrassed for me. And then as the judge, I said, enough hot air out of you. The only person who can let hot air out here is the judge. And everyone just like burst out laughing. It was like, oh my, did she really do that? She did. Oh my God.
Did.
There's a
And
silly,
she claimed it,
and
even better.
there's a silly example.
No, but because the idea is like you do challenge a lot of norms. So there's always the questions like, do people come to you and go like, wow, did she say that? Like, did she really kind of like, kind of put me in my place, take a moment and say something that maybe kind of shook my core foundation for what
Yeah,
I believed.
yeah, I think that's less my role now.
Okay.
And my role now is to listen and reflect. And I think the closest I'll get to that is we do this process. So part of our process with the nonprofit work is really simply we take people out into nature, we open people up, and then we do a fast. So people go out on their own without a tent, without food, definitely without their phone, and water. And then when they come back, they tell a story of what
Mm,
they had reflected on out there. It's often, it is simple, but the things that come out of it are really
profound.
astounding in a lot of ways. And so we do this process where they tell their story, and then we reflect back the story. And often it's a form of, it's not just repeating back the words, it's a deep sense of who that person is. And it's very risky, because, and this happens whether it's an individual or a team or a group of people. We've taken families, teams, like lots of different types of groups, networks. Um, it's a very, like, to reflect back to a group kind of what you're hearing at its essence, is incredibly, a kind of truth is incredibly feeling feels incredibly risky.
Mm,
But it's not a challenge. It's always done. I think I did a lot of that challenging when I was younger, like, well, I in rooms with 20 men, me being the only woman. I seem It seems to be
mm.
a theme of my life. A lot of like da 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 da, and now it's like always at the center is deep love, and that's how I check myself. So did she really say that? For me now is, um, like,
It's a listening.
it's a listening. It's a deep
Yeah, it's
listening.
not a say, it's a listen for you.
Yeah, it's a deep listening with love. And maybe I'm just getting old, but but
Well,
I feel
here's
like
this
that's what
then
the
the
world needs
shift
this
for
moment.
you is did she really listen from love? Right? And I think that is the ever evolving of this conversation is that there is moments where we surprise ourselves by falling in love with ourselves. And the journey that you're on is also now with building this nonprofit Wayfinders. So like why is this work important to you now?
Oh, now you're going to make me cry. I'm guessing there are a lot of mothers here. Oh, geez, it's so hard. I'm a single mum. I can't do it well. I've given up. You have to give up. I've had to give up perfection being, and not that I ever was striving for perfection, but I guess as a single mother of three kids, and for a long time now, and their dads are completely, all three kids, their dads are absent for various reasons. Um, there's only two of them. It sounded like there was five fathers. There's two fathers.
I
One's
was
dead.
like, wow, how many do you have?
One's
Yes. Okay.
one's dead, and the other is an addict and dealing with his own problems. So yeah, I think the emotions I feel, the best I could do in my motherhood was to love my kids and just
Mm,
keep growing as a human. And I have, after going through a period of really kind of doing my work and shutting out the world, I've spent the last 7 years opening up to the world again and grieving a lot about what I feel as I open up to the world. But I think having my girls leaving home now, it's like it's hard. And we haven't prepared our schooling system. I'm not even talking us as mothers. Our schooling system hasn't prepared them for this.
no.
At its core, we're asking our kids to have major discernment. They have to have the capacity to take in all of this information and be able to discern what's true and what's not, be
Mm,
able to not they're not being given a path. There's not a set path anymore, so they have to have so much self-awareness that they can make choices, plus they're suffering a moral injury, that they've been given a world that seems to them, whether this is the reality or not, seems to them, to many of them, like it's not functional.
yeah,
you know, and an environment which seems to have been, you can judge it any well, but not be optimal. Let's just say it that way.
I agree.
And we haven't educated them for that. We've
Mm,
got an old style school of system, and then we have alternatives, but often they're just literally like the opposite of that, and still are not doing the preparation in a really good way. And so as I was doing this work and I was feeling the power of it, um, I felt the power of the impact it was having, and I asked myself, well, what, what in this next phase of my life, what is the biggest impact this work can have? And I really felt that the biggest impact, and this is me coming up, I made some really tough choices. I was a mum by the age of 22, and it was really hard, made my life very hard. I was doing drugs as a young mother.
mm,
I'm not a drug addict, but I was partying, and that was not a good decision. That made life harder. And I didn't, I know that those decisions I made at that time in my life actually had long-term impacts on my life. And so
yes.
if we can, we've given our kids a hard road to travel down, we haven't prepared them for it. And also, they're setting anchors as they go through as they leave home and go through their 20s. And so, Wayfinders is to help with that. So, it's first of all the sort of self knowledge and self efficacy, your ability to make choices, is what this work teaches. It also comes back to, which I think is a driving force, is of pur- purposefulness, is
Yep.
how you are being called to serve your community, which is very different to how do I make money and how do I
Yep.
survive? The question changes. And that's also like, if you have that question, that is definitely how you get purpose and meaning in your life. It doesn't,
Yep.
matter what religion or spiritual orientation you have. And then, being able to also train adults as mentors in the skills to walk alongside young adults, not tell them what to do, not feel shameful about what they have or have not given them, but be able to really listen and receive the reciprocal energy of youth, and be able to be nourished by that, and for that adult to be heard and respected for the questions that they're asking and the guidance they're
Mm,
providing. And so that's kind of like what I'd done work with young adults before, but then I saw them going back and there was no support there, or not enough. And rarely.
there's like a severance. There's something that happened that severed that ability to have that. And I don't know if it's communities or if the internet really broke or dissolved this, but there was this that like you're talking about. It's like it's kids' place to be able to be mentored by somebody. The elderly, myself, is inspired by our youth, and they have questions. So what can we impart on them? That wisdom that flows both ways, because there is something around that creativity, that the world through a new set of eyes that I think I enjoy experiencing and seeing, and then freeing, having them being open to hearing what we've experienced is that balance that we continue to weave.
Yeah, and then like being, I think I don't know about you, but I'm pretty overwhelmed as a middle-aged woman, and I think there are a lot of people who are pretty overwhelmed. It's just they
Yes.
like set things up to be too easy.
Yeah.
So, and then and then we stick for the vast majority, we're ignoring a whole source of wisdom, which is in the elderly.
Yes.
And giving it was fascinating last season. I call summer in summer I was in Alaska and I was doing a pilot of one of these programs. And
Mm.
the guy who was the older guy who was telling stories and really listening to both the adults and the kids that were there, and but occasionally like coming in with some cracker wisdom, said at the end, I feel like I've finally come into my own. I feel like the mistakes I've made and the pain I've gone through in this environment, they now have a purpose. And I
Yeah.
cried. I was like, oh my God. And so much of this is so simple and intrinsic. Like, how do you look after your environment? Well, care about it, learn how it teaches you. Once you care about and you learn, oh, shoot, the environment is a teacher, it's this valuable
It
resource,
is.
you're going to care for it. How do you come back to like, oh wow, we've got AI now. Let's go back to healing and being able to be in relationship with other humans because there is so much generative ability there. At
Agree.
the moment, we're separated in these kind of containers. So
Yeah, these silos of craziness.
yeah, so it's an extended program, has a wilderness component. We're designing it so we can scale it. So we'll
Mm-hmm.
seed it. So we're seeding it next year in Ventura County in California, in Minnesota, in Alaska. But it's where the whole idea of this is that I mean, I would hope that the foundation doesn't need to be in business in 10 years. I mean, I would hope that, but the whole idea is that we seed this in communities around the world. And actually, once you seed it, it has its own life because it is a natural way that we interrelate. It's just something to kind of break and remember who we are and what's important to us in community. And that's really, and unlearn some of the bad habits we picked up. So that's really kind of like what it is. It's pretty simple. And yeah, it's blessed work. I'm to be around. I just took a mother and son out. Oh, the the son about to turn 21, first time he had been camping, took him out in the wilderness. They were so scared. Like, what's that sound? I said, look, you've been much more danger in your house in New York City.
Than there is here in the woods. Yeah, this is true.
But the joy on his face when he just spent 4 hours on his own following the river and like
Mm.
thinking about his life and the joy, it was like everything, his whole face changed. And he just texted me before this going, do you have a like list of camping equipment I can get from you? I'm like, absolutely, here you go.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to mark my life every 7 years, come out and do this reflection and work out what I want and what I don't want to take with me. And it's simple, but that's what it's about.
It is. It's getting back to where you can clear your mind. And we are so distracted by technology, by this ever racing of television and computers and digital phones. And as great as they have been, there's also the sense of detaching from it and just getting really back into yourself, asking yourself questions and listening again.
And yeah, and I think the main thing we're also, I mean, with the nonprofit, we are like we're taking families out, but we're charging for that. With the nonprofit, we're really focusing on, and as a young adult said to me the other day, this is everyone, but focusing on, what it is to have a different relationship with your trauma as well.
Yeah.
So we're dealing with a lot of people with complex trauma, and really going back to it, where we started, I guess, circling back right to the beginning, is that the place that you can really move through in defining your gift of service is really through traveling through the wounds you have accumulated. That's where the wisdom is. It's a bit like the tension, and I've just seen it. So, like that, changing the relationship with the trauma to let it, in the very painful healing journey of like seeing it, forgiving is a
Yes.
part of that, forgiveness, but then coming through it and being able to, through that, have an understanding that no one else does.
Mm.
Be able to use that to give back is really so central to this as well.
Yeah, we could be wrapping up this episode because I have a feeling we could go on and on and on. But here's what I'm going to tell all of our listeners. Miriam has given you some great tips and insight really around how to get started getting back to yourself again, taking that time to understand who you are in your environment, whether it's career, whether it's a solo entrepreneur, giving those first tasks of even walking through your office space, wandering wander,
Wonder, wonder.
the wandering wander. That is this O and then A, the wandering wander, and letting yourself just experience or newly see the environments that you're in. Do this at home, walk through your kitchen, most of the time we do not take in the actual space. It's the mindfulness of it. And I know there are a lot of groups and ways that you can connect with Miriam. There is the Walking Wild, there is the Circle Labs that she has, there's the Open Circle, there is, the Ways Finders that's coming in. So all these notes, all these ways to connect are going to be down in the show notes. So whether you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, you're following us on YouTube, you're checking out our website, that information is there for you so that you can connect to Miriam because this is a passion project for her. You can hear it in her voice. You can feel it resonate. If you've been watching us on video here on Spotify, you can actually just feel that energy coming across from her. This is something that is transforming lives, families, communities, corporations. It has a social economical impact beyond just you. And I invite you to really connect with her. Find out where she's at. I know she's going to be doing some collaboration. I know she's been reaching out to some incredible people. So I invite you just to get to know her, see if there's an area that you can collaborate with her in, and just take this into your space because nature, environment, stepping out, looking out, can really change anything and everything around us. So, any last words of wisdom, Miriam, before we wrap up?
No, I'm really grateful for you. It's really, so much of this, the other side of listening is being able to share your story and being able to be seen for who you are. And the gift of, did she really say that? is, is really like us as women, really like listening and seeing and acknowledging each other's stories, and that they all have a place.
They
Everyone has
do.
a place and a unique gift. And yeah, I guess I'm just starting off this journey as a nonprofit, and I am calling in patrons for this work. So just want to say that loud and clear. I really want this work to scale and grow. I believe it's needs to happen quickly and soon. And so really calling in patrons. And I'm saying that here in case anyone's listening, but I'm also just claiming it. Claiming that good healing work in the world, and that includes everyone here listening. I'm claiming it on behalf of myself and everyone here, that good healing work in the world is that it is not just like creeping up on surviving, but it thrives and money flows strongly as living water through all of this work. And so I just want to claim it.
Agree.
That's my, did she say it?
Claim
I
it. I
said it. I
like it.
said it.
She said it. She's claiming it. She's like, this is who I am. This is what I'm creating. This is my call to the world. This is who are listening. So if you're in here, you find that you can connect with her, you resonated with her, I'm telling you, you just never know who you're going to meet here on Did She Really Say That? So I want to thank all my listeners for listening in. You guys know the drill. If you love this conversation, comment down below. Let Miriam know how awesome she is. If you like this entire episode that we've been putting together, give us a 5-star rating. We definitely love that one. I'm calling that out in the world too. But most of all, thank you so much for spending your time with us here today on this episode. And as a listener, I invite you to stick around and come back and visit us on our next. With that, have a great day, everyone.